Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm not sure if anyone has actually read Xi Jinping's speech. I've read most of it, and it's very inspiring for the leader and the so-called dictator of an autocratic country. What they're really concerned about, and this is what they're facing, is a middle income gap, which has been talked about a lot, and they're struggling to identify and pinpoint a solution, because the first world has gone through this middle income gap, just like Brazil, and various other countries. But what I find remarkable when everybody in this great country of Canada complains about human rights is that we don't recognize that in the last 15 years, China has raised 800 million people out of poverty. I'd like to ask, in the context of human rights, Canada is fast growing internally, domestically, in a huge number of the general population, which I wouldn't consider this crowd to be a part of, to be struggling with our own human rights. Do you know what the minimum wage is in BC?
I think it's $11.75.
Correct. The cost of living in most of Canada is almost unlivable. So if we're talking about basic human rights, which China has now given 800 million of their own people, we have more to worry about inside Canada than just First Nations and having clean water. We have a population that is on the verge of having it up to here with elitism, with colonialism, and with a service economy. Conrad Black wrote about this. He said the service economy is no longer sustainable. It's not sustainable. Everybody has a problem with state-owned enterprises. Those state-owned enterprises are what has raised 800 million people out of poverty. Infrastructure is what raised those people out of poverty. So I guess my question is, how can we get through this? 97%, if we really want to sincerely engage in free trade agreements with China, 97% of our economy in Canada and the United States is in speculation. Only 5 to 7% of China's economy is in speculation. So when the inevitable financial bubble bursts, China's going to be doing okay, and we're not. I am more concerned about that than I am about getting casino economy companies into China.
Well, thank you for your remarks. You're right that when you look at the speech of Xi Jinping, it's very inspiring, and it's very genuine, this desire on his part to improve the lot of the population, with this goal to raise another 40 million people out of poverty in the next 3 years. He alluded to this also when he said now that China is faced with this new dilemma about how to reconcile people's expectation when I went to China the first time, Chinese people wanted to have 4 things, and in Chinese it was the expression Sanjuan, Lixiang. They wanted to have a wristwatch, a bicycle, a sewing machine, and a radio. I discussed this with young Chinese, and they had no clue what San Juan was. And I said, well, you should be grateful because life was very tough in those years. I can tell you it was difficult to have meat in winter. And, my younger daughter, who was born in Hong Kong when we got out of China, the first time she was 8 months old, well, almost a year. And we arrived in Hong Kong and with the car stopped at the food stall. She wanted to jump because she had been deprived and so tremendous progress. And this focus also on improving health, getting rid of pollution. I'm convinced that we will get rid of pollution because now, again, the genie's out of the bottle. They have to do this. So, and we have to encourage them and see how we can help them. And in fact, there are lessons that we can learn from China. In many sectors, they are way ahead of us. Mobile payment. I went to buy coffee at Starbucks. If you look at me as if I were a dinosaur, because I was the only customer paying with cash. Everyone else is using small. They pay their taxes on WeChat, and we can learn a lot. So I think that should be the basis of a proper, respectful relationship to learn from each other. And of course, in Canada, we have many areas we have improvements.